Hello, everyone. Welcome to this radcast of the Social Club at the End of the World. And I'm very happy to be joined by Alex, who's out in Texas, Adrian, who's joining us from North Carolina, Dan, who's joining us from Chicago, Miles joining us from Calgary, Canada, and yours truly, Jamin Shively, joining from the great state of Washington. So I'm just going to go on mute and give you all an opportunity to say hello to the world and introduce yourselves if you feel like it, and then we'll jump over to North Carolina with Adrian, who will give us an update from there. Going on mute. All righty. Well,
okay, I'll go ahead and talk. I'm Adrian. I'm from North Carolina, and I just wanted to introduce myself first and let the fellas introduce themselves, and then we can come back to me and I'll explain what's going on in my neck of the woods.
Perfect. Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah, I'm Dan from Chicago. Been a participant in the social club at the End of the World for quite some time. A lot has happened since we began doing this, and you know, I continue. I've kind of adopted the term. I think I maybe picked it up from Jennifer Hines, but you know, when people ask what I'm doing now, I say I'm an information activist, and so I, you know, do that in terms of abrupt climate change and also for mental health locally here in the city of Chicago. So, you know, I'm still optimistic that we can make considerable progress on the kind of overwhelming planetary implosion that's occurring. But I do feel as, you know, each season rolls into the next, time is really running out of the hourglass, and to some degree, everybody has to respect that. So I'm going to go on mute and let somebody else pick up.
My name's Alex. I'm from Austin, Texas. I came here to have a great conversation with everyone, and everyone's usually very friendly and very nice. And just enjoying the sixth mass extinction and human extinction. So yeah, great day.
Hello. Hello, this is Miles. I'm calling from Calgary. I have a bit of an audio problem at the moment, but I look forward to the conversation.
Great, great. Thank you all so much for being here. And Adrian, let's turn it over to you, and please take it away.
Okay, well, obviously, I'm sure all of you have heard that North Carolina and even South Carolina have been hit by a hurricane. And as it was coming in, I looked at it, and it just looked terrible. And yes, it was a Category 4 right before it hit, and then it was instantly downgraded to a 1. And at that time, I noticed all the major news sources were there. CNN was there, Fox News was there, all of them were there. And that was, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then we hit the weekend, and it just seemed to disappear. I was looking at the headlines now, and I don't see much going on there. But the fact of the matter is, and the fact that I find something that I find very interesting, is that the major destruction from this hurricane is actually coming from flooding. And the number of deaths that are coming for us are coming from mostly the flooding and the rising of the flood waters. There is not a single person in the state of North Carolina that has not been touched in some way, shape, or form by this hurricane. And that would be via flash flood watches. It would be the hurricane watches, the hurricane warnings. It would be flood warnings, you know, you name it, or just tornado warnings. So in the state, if you follow the path of this storm, which started out as a hurricane, went to a tropical storm, went to a tropical depression, it actually circled almost all the way around Raleigh, is what it looks like from what I'm seeing. And it's like I said, it's very interesting that, you know, once all of the news stations left, that's when all the deaths are happening. That's when the true destruction is happening. And I just wanted to make that note to you guys. Also, one other thing, it's actually effectively crippled our state. I want to note that our state, our major thoroughways, I-95, I-40, I-85, and 76, 74 have been shut down. And we even have the inability to reach one of our cities, which is Wilmington, North Carolina. We have not been able to get through to them. I think that they got through recently with just some emergency food and water. But for the most part, the southeastern portion of North Carolina is completely, you can't reach it. So it's unreachable for the most part. So if you guys have any questions for me, let me know.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a couple of questions, and also to make the point, and I hope I don't tangent off too much here, but I noticed that this hurricane, you know, which is spawned off of Africa, and, you know, the oceans are superheated, and so they get created quite easily. But I noticed they were saying it's going to hit with, I even think they were saying 5, or some people were saying even, oh, we need a higher category 6 to describe what this is going to be with the wind strength. And then it gets near to the shore, and it's suddenly downgraded very, very quickly. And I'm not sure that I've heard a logical explanation for that. That may be there, and if that's something you would be able to address, Adrian, I'd be interested in hearing it. So that's one question. The other issue, which is kind of related to that, and I don't want to you know, go off too much on this, but I've been, you know, I read a lot of stuff. I follow a lot of different things. You know, the mainstream media, the alt-right media, and, you know, everything that I can find. It seems that there is a general kind of thought out there, which may or may not be correct, that the United States government, the military essentially, and I would imagine, you know, in these areas, you know, it's secret, that they actually have the ability to alter the intensity of these hurricanes. And I think if that is the case, it's pretty significant, because if you know, if they're able to actually do that, let's say to diminish the wind strength of a hurricane, well, if they're actually able to do that, then you know, and that technology does exist, you then have to ask the question, how is it being used? How should it be used if it exists? And aren't people entitled to understand that? So that's one issue and question. And then here's the other one. You know, it's being politicized in our country, in the United States. And I'll just give a little anecdotal version of how this, I think, is a real problem, something perhaps that radical collective intelligence could be helpful with. But I was watching the Tucker Carlson, you know, cable show on Fox News. And I couldn't help but notice, you know, this was during when the hurricane is, you know, occurring. And as you said, Adrian, of course, the worst is probably maybe is yet to come with the flooding. But he basically, people like Tucker Carlson and others in the mainstream media, they do not even remotely seem to understand how serious the climate change issues are. And so he says on his show, well, I'm going to bring on a meteorologist to discuss this particular, you know, Hurricane Florence. And then who comes up on his show? but this guy named Roy Spencer, who is he's from University of Alabama in Huntsville. He is one of the most well-known deniers of climate change. He's been a shill for the energy industry for a very long time. And I don't, and does Tucker Carlson even know who he is? Probably not, in a sense. But somebody at Fox News arranged for this guy, Roy Spencer, to come out there and say, well, no, this is really nothing unusual, these new hurricanes. We've had this going on for a long, long time. It's just normal variability. And that just goes out there. And that's a really serious problem. So I think it's very important to understand that as long as we have Tucker Carlson and all of the other mainstream media talking heads, ignorant or willfully just denying and not talking about this in a serious way, you have the entire population or most of the population of the United States essentially, kind of asleep at the wheel. They're kind of, so I'm going to go ahead and mute out and get it back to Adrian.
Okay, well, the first couple of things that I need to address with you here. The first thing is you said that you had heard initially that it was going to come in as a category 5, and possibly we need to get a new category here, put it to a category 6, because we know that these hurricanes they will be increasing in strength even more and more as time goes by. And it sounded to me like you were wondering, how did this all of a sudden lose energy? Well, with any hurricane, with any storm system that comes off of the ocean, it gains the energy from the ocean and loses the energy once it hits land. In this case, we had a hurricane that slowed down drastically at the moment that it hit land, and or even came close to land. And when I looked at it on the radar, it looked to me like it was almost akin to a long spouted pitcher, one that they use to water flowers or plants. It was almost like it was picking up water from the ocean and just dumping it into the southeastern part of North Carolina. So storms will lose energy very rapidly once they hit land. And the biggest concern that the meteorologists seemed to have when I was listening to the broadcast was, what if it bounces onto land, comes off of land, goes to the ocean, gains more energy, and then comes back? I think that maybe, and I'm not sure about the HARP thing that you're talking about with the altering of the intensity, but I think that this thing it came on land. It turned into a category 1 once even just the far. See, the thing is with these hurricanes, you might have just seen the track of the eye of it. These things, have a huge swath of distance that it covers. I mean, it's huge, hundreds and hundreds of miles that it covers. So it's not just the eye of the storm that's hitting land. So the loss of energy put it down to a category 1. And even as a category 1, the fact that it stalled out allowed it to pull more and more water off the ocean and just dump it onto the state of North Carolina. The second thing that you talked about was, do we have the ability to alter the intensity of a hurricane? And I'll be very honest with you, I am not aware of that. I don't know, not for sure. I have heard of the HARP program. And I agree with you. The people of the United States need to be aware of what this HARP program is and what it's able to do. I have heard that it has the ability to alter weather, which would make it a very powerful military tool. I don't know enough about it to speak on that one, but I can speak on this. You had talked about the general misunderstanding of the public. And I want to say that something very fascinating came to light to me just recently, just in the past year. For years and years, literally decades, I have been a science educator, and I've been teaching people about latent heat of energy of water and how important ice is, and continuing to keep the energy in balance for our oceans and our atmosphere and our Earth as a whole. And what I found recently and actually, no, maybe I didn't, maybe it hasn't been just recently, but what I realized recently is that when I start talking about science, when I start talking about climate versus weather and explaining climate versus weather, I am finding not only are people in the general public immediately thinking I'm being political by explaining science, I'm finding it in the classroom now, which I never expected to find. And when I have high school students who, you know, are not believing science because they think I'm being political explaining science, we have a problem. We have a definite problem in our country. Because when the facts are shut down, when the true data is shut down as a result of political tribalism, we've got a problem. And this has not been a problem that just because I realized it's a problem. This has probably been a problem for 10 years. And I didn't realize how deep this problem is until just recently. I'll mute.
Wow. Wow. That's, yeah, that, that is absolutely huge. Adrian, your perspective is so valuable as an educator, because you've been teaching environmental science and
Physics.
You know, physics and related topics for many years. This is your career, and you're telling us that only recently has there actually been a shift where students are starting to react to what you're saying, not just as science, but as politics. Is that correct? Can you just clarify?
That is correct. And I wouldn't say that's with all the students. This is just the first time that I've seen this with, you know, just pockets of students. And of course, students that I have in my classroom, a lot of their beliefs, their political beliefs, are as a result of their parents. You know, what they hear from their parents, what their parents watch on TV, and what they see happening. And in one of the high schools that I teach in, it's in Trump country. It's in southeastern USA. So that's where I saw it the most, and that's where I saw that first pocket. And I think this actually started in 2016. I really do. I've really seen a change in the student population, and this is not just in the southeastern portion of North Carolina. I see this all over North Carolina in certain areas, and it's devastating. It's devastating because when you're standing in front of a classroom and you have the truth, you have the data, you have the ability to show data analysis of this data and show how this data is progressing and what the extrapolation of this data is showing in these kids. You know, you have a kid or two kids, not all the kids, of course, but when you have a, you know, certain kids looking at it, no, you're just saying that because you don't like Trump or whatever, which is not the case. This is not me saying, this is not me against let's make America great again. This is me saying let's make America smart again, because we have lost our scientific ability to understand what is going on with the world.
Gotcha. Thank you, Adrian. By the way, since we have a number of folks on, Miles, I'll get to you just one second. I just wanted to comment that since we have a number of people on, we have a kind of a system for effectively raise your hand to say if you want to speak next, and you do that by just typing a comment in. So Miles did that. Thank you for doing that, Miles. I invite everyone to do that. So Miles, back to you. Thank you.
Pardon me. Thank you, Adrian, for updating us. I'm in Calgary, Canada, and just a bit of touching upon freedom of speech and being inhibited from speaking your truth, Adrian. Just quick sharing here. I recently traveled from Dublin back to Calgary, transiting through New York at JFK Airport. Did not visit New York at all, just the airport. Anyway, to be quite honest with you, you know, for the longest time, it was disturbing to me to even have to transit through JFK because of what I've learned from other Americans and even maybe yourselves. So what I'm saying, this fear is not generated by anything any Canadian told me, but people like Chris Hedges talking about, since 9/11, the deterioration of civil liberties in the United States and things like the National Defense Authorization Act, where especially me as a foreigner, an alien, if I in any way was construed to be aiding anyone who was considered a enemy of the United States, I could be arrested, and habeas corpus essentially doesn't exist down there, things like this. So anyway, just wanted to say that, and now that I'm back, I feel a little more confident. With respect to speaking freely and why we're not getting the correct information, there's a report here that I have from the Australian people. It's titled "What Lies Beneath," and essentially this article, a scientifically peer-reviewed article, says that the International Panel on Climate Change is suffering from scientific reticence, and even to the point of what could be called collective psychological paralysis. So anyways, what this report says is the IPCC has been underreporting the seriousness of climate change for political reasons, as you've just experienced, Adrian, firsthand in the classroom. So again, it's called What Lies Beneath. It's produced out of Australia by, I believe, the Australian scientific community. They talk about a failure of imagination, and that we are being seriously misled. So with that, when Daniel gets a chance, I'd like to ask him about his thoughts on this collective psychological paralysis that's preventing us from actually saying, okay, enough's enough. We got to take the bull by the horns and get on with solving this. I'll go on mute.
All righty. And thank you, Miles. I want to introduce my Queen Melianor, who's joining us for a bit.
Hi, everyone.
And
good to see you all. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, this collective psychological paralysis, one manifestation of that is, as Alex submitted on the chat portion here, North Carolina had, I understand, the legislature had banned the words climate change from being part of the discussion in the legislature. I haven't read the links lately, but I think that's a part of it. So I too would like to hear Dan's feedback and analysis. But first I want to introduce and welcome Jason. I don't know if this is a good moment for you to be introduced. Feel free to pipe in and say hello to everyone if you'd like. Jason from Long Beach, California.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason from Long Beach, California. Good to see some familiar faces, Jamin, Dan, all of you. Guess I don't see Adam here. He's the only one missing. Miles, good to see you. That was interesting hearing what she had to say about the school kids. I honestly could not imagine being a teacher in a school that had a predominantly high number of families that were Trump supporters. It would probably drive me crazy, and I'd either end up being fired in like some very crazy manner of me flipping out, or like I'd have to leave. I don't know how you actually put up with that. I applaud you for being able to do that. Yeah, I don't know. I've just been kind of plugging along myself, hoping to get out of the city and live in maybe Oregon. I've been thinking about maybe moving to like the Eugene, possibly outside of Portland, somewhere kind of around their area, just because California is so expensive. And I don't see this problem getting any better. I definitely don't see people waking up from the last couple times. We've talked for I've talked with you guys for 2 years now, maybe, huh, Jamin? I don't know. But I'm curious to see how you've been doing with the tech industry type stuff that you were trying to get a word out of there. And personally, I'm just trying to learn more and more about gardening and growing my own food, because I feel that is going to be one thing that people really should know how to do. Like everybody should know how to be able to grow enough food for their family. And I kind of learned just for trying to make a small garden in the urban city that it's very difficult, for sure. So I want to have more like a little actual house on a plot of land where I have a little more space and can have some chickens and things like that. I feel like even if, you know, we don't all make it in the end, at least if I have some chickens and a little bit of land to just enjoy it while it all crumbles and watch it crumble apart. I'd still love to be part of some sort of popular resistance movement to this madness that we see going on around us. So I'm happy to be here and at least have a conversation with people who are awake to the fact of what's going on. And I hope that maybe we will be successful in some way of enlightening people about this issue and maybe even doing something like refreeze the Arctic. Woo! Right? Refreeze the Arctic? All right, I'll be quiet now. I guess I'm just blapping my mouth off, but good to see y'all.
Thank you, Jason. Great to see you, buddy. Queen Millionor would like to jump in. And again, anyone who wants to jump in, please just type in your name into the chat window and take it away, my queen.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
Jason, hi. Nice to see you for the first time. Thanks for your comments. That just got me thinking about a way forward when we are in situations that seem frictional or where there's resistance, and that is to come at whatever situation we find ourselves in with love. And on the Microsoft campus recently, handing out flyers to people cold, what I had to do was suspend my judgment of people who ignored me, who looked a certain way, all the fast cars, expensive cars going by, and just open my heart up and just come from this place of, I'm going to call it Christ consciousness. And I'm not a religious person, so I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but it's really with this open-heartedness, love. And what I found was that people ceased to be afraid of me, and actually at first often would reject the flyer, but then would turn around, look at us, look at me, and come back up to me and ask for a flyer. So I just wanted to remind us all of that we need to stop seeing ourselves as us and them, stop separating ourselves out from one another, and really come to this from a place of love. And then I think we can take action. And there are many different ways of taking action to bring about change. On Whidbey Island this coming weekend, an artist friend of mine and I are creating a living orca mural with a community. We're going to create a large orca whale out of 200 human bodies dressed in black. It's part of the Backbone campaign. You guys could check them out. They're an activist movement here in Washington State doing very interesting work. And it's really to address the plight of the orcas and the Salish Sea, which is really suffering from military action, sonar, too much boating, overfishing, etc. So I think there are small things we can do and there are bigger things we can do as well, but always coming from this place of creative imagination and love. So I'll leave you guys with that thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, my queen. All right, let's see. It looks like Dan is up next, but first Adrian made a comment that I can 100% guarantee you that the insurance companies did not and are not ignoring the predictions. The insurance companies are building them into their premiums and policies. So now back to and on to Dan. Thank you.
So to address the general problem in the populace, I think you have two different issues. One is the disinformation, the propaganda, the lying that goes on and on and on. And we have to understand, as human beings, if you don't have adequate knowledge of a subject, in other words, you don't know much about it, and you also perhaps don't know how to think critically or to research something, we're talking about most of the people in the United States, unfortunately, today. Then what people do is they listen to the authority figures. And when an authority figure tells you something again and again and again, because you really don't have adequate knowledge or ability to critically think something or research it, what happens is you will take it as the gospel. You know, it's like a little child. A little child has no knowledge of the world. They have to depend on the elders in the community, parents, etc., to tell them what's okay, what's not okay, what's safe, what's dangerous. So they are just programmed to accept what the elders tell them. This is how it is. Once those things are imprinted as beliefs, it is very difficult to dislodge them, because the idea of a belief is it's to facilitate action. So if you are indecisive about something, or you have anxiety about, should I do it? What's going to happen? I don't know. You're in an anxious, undecided state. You cannot step forward. And the idea of beliefs is that it removes that indecisiveness, that doubt. You know, hey, I know this is how it is. I know what I have to do. It facilitates action in the world. It's a very powerful mechanism. And for each individual, it's hard to know how many times you have to have something put in there before it becomes imprinted as a belief. Now, we can imprint ourselves also. I can say, you know, I think Donald Trump is basically a good guy trying to save the country. How many times do I have to hear that or say that to myself before it takes on the force of a belief? Once it is a belief, what will happen is I will have an easy time thinking of all the information in my mind brain that will support that belief. I will have great difficulty accessing information that contravenes it, goes against it. And if somebody puts something before me, like, you know, hey, here's something to think about, say, about Donald Trump. Here's some reasons why maybe he's not such a great guy. What I will do is I will minimize that, or I will rationalize it away so that I do not have to let my belief go. I can say, well, you're telling me that, but you know, that's no big deal, or this is just propaganda that's being put out there. It's not true. So we have to, you know, in some way understand that. And the only way that you get rid of beliefs is you have to force yourself to look at the counter evidence and to understand, first to just understand what a belief is. So that's one problem that we have going on. The other one is just simply, you know, the anxiety, fear. If I can't think about the consequences of exponential climate change going to its final, end, and what does that mean for me? What does it mean for my loved ones? What does it mean for my community? If I can't even think about that because it makes me feel sad, or it makes me feel, you know, depressed, or whatever kind of language someone wants to use to describe that state, well, then how am I ever going to come to a, you know, kind of a conclusion? Well, we really got to do something about it. You know, it's if we don't do something, that's what's coming. So let's try to do everything we can. And what I find is, and what I've had to learn ever since I became, as I'm now saying, I'm, you know, an information activist concerning climate change, I've had to self-censor myself over and over again with people, because it's quite clear that either because of beliefs they have, or emotional reactivity, usually anxiety, fear, that I'm not going to be able to do anything in terms of getting them informed or activated. So I just wanted to throw that in. That's my take. And again, I think that it's something which does, in fact, need to be seriously addressed. I'm going to mute out.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Really good points. Queen Millionaire needs to take off for an appointment. And Adam, Hey, welcome, Adam. Great to see you, buddy. Feel free to chime in. We're using the system where we'll just chat message in. I'll set the example. Just typing in my own name into the chat box, signaling I'd like to talk next. But first, wanted to welcome Adam, and please feel free to say hello if this is a good time.
Oh, hello, and yes, I'll have to go on mute. I wasn't going to come on, but because my wife and I are going someplace and getting ready to go, but I saw you on here and just really had to get on. So it's okay. It will be delayed for 45 minutes or so. Thanks.
Gotcha. Well, great to see you, Adam. And I want to point out that Adam has been at every single one of the 5 days that we've been at the Microsoft campus in the last couple weeks. And since no one else is queued up, I thought I'd take this opportunity to kind of share a little bit about that experience. So what I'm going to do is transfer the screen over to my other computer here where I can show and share. Let me do that right now. Okay. All right. Can y'all hear me okay on this other computer? Yep. Okay, thanks. Okay, what I'm going to do then is screen share and just play a short little video clip of what you're going to see is Queen Melianor, myself, Adam, Jamie Gilchrist, and others who joined us out on the Microsoft campus. We've been there 5 days out of the last 2 weeks. This little video clip just kind of gives a little demo of that. Adam was kind enough to film this little clip here. And okay, looks like we can see that on the screen. So I'll just play this and then I'll get into more of the context. But basically what we're doing is we're reaching out and rallying the entire technology sector to join us in the race for solutions to abrupt climate change. And as you can see in that sign, and I'll pause the video when Adam zooms in on the signs, but this one in the middle here says, "Help us, Satya Nadella, you're our only hope." And the sign that indicates the, kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Princess Leia from Star Wars. And then we've got another one that says, that shows abrupt climate change as the Death Star starting to destroy Mother Earth. So anyway, I'll just play this now, and then I'll actually read the proposal that we've submitted to Microsoft. So here goes.
Te miro y no me miras. Solo quita la aspirina. Es un amor que contamina.
Okay, so this sign here, abrupt climate change, represented as the Death Star with its characteristic giant laser beam that destroys planets. Well, it's now pointing its planet at Mother Earth herself, starting to destroy it. And the question, which side are you on? So that really states the problem and the fundamental issue. So I'll keep it rolling here, and then we'll see the next sign in a moment. And then there's the next sign, which appeals directly to Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, with Princess Leia saying, "Help us, Satya Nadella, you're our only hope." And, you know, this is meant to put very benevolent, gentle pressure on Microsoft and the top management, all the way to the CEO, to please join us.
Búscate un catéter, inyéctame tu amor como insulina, dame vitamina de cariño, que me ha subido la bilirrubina, me sube la bilirrubina, cuando te miro y no me miras, solo quita la aspirina, es un amor que contamina. Sube la bilirrubina. Cuando te miro y no me miras. Solo quita la aspirina. Es un amor que contamina.
All righty. And there you see Queen Eleanor handing out flyers. She actually handed out close to 1,000 flyers over the course of all those days. And anyway, I'll share more in a minute. But first, let me get back to you all. And I think Dan is next, but let me verify that momentarily. Okay. Indeed. Dan, take it away, Dan.
Yeah, so, you know, kind of looking at the mission to recruit Microsoft, you know, and kind of placing it within the context of what I was saying before. So here you have the Microsoft employees, different levels, different skill sets, all very intelligent, generally speaking. And then you have the upper echelon. And here's the thing. It's you know, you're giving out flyers to them which say, hey, wake up, you know, this is a really dangerous situation and we need your assistance. We need your assistance in terms of maybe facilitating the upscaling of radical collective intelligence. But here's the problem. One of the problems that exists is if these individuals, there's two things. One is Microsoft and all of these corporations, which are in the news a lot, they are fundamentally authoritarian, bureaucratic structures. And what everybody who's in one of these organizations has to understand, as I did when I worked, you know, in the government here, what everybody has to understand is you'd better learn the fine art of self-censoring yourself. Learn not to cross too many boundaries or you will not be taking home a paycheck for very long, or you're going to have a very miserable existence. And so we have a lot of that, you know, and I would put that in the fear category, the anxiety fear part. We also have the problem of what do these individuals actually know? What you know, how much do they know about abrupt climate change? And if they are of the opinion, or they have the belief that it's not a big deal, you know, they've kind of bought into, you know, the kind of pacification stuff, which says, you know, we don't have to really worry till 2040, 2050, 2100. It's very, very easy to kind of go to sleep and not to want to be bothered by these voices which interfere with their happy everyday lives, so to speak. And so I think we need to recognize what's going on, because if I try to appeal to somebody who, as I used to do when I was working in the city of Chicago, I would bring up all sorts of things that I thought were really important to address. But and I could speak to laterals in the city, or people from different departments, etc., and they would be on the same page that I am. But the higher ups always were either going to censor what you had to say, and they were certainly going to self-censor themselves before bringing it up to the big boss, who was Mayor Emanuel. And so these are just practical problems. And I think with radical, if we had, you know, this is just a fantasy, but if we, and I don't understand, you know, the coding and the construction and the engineering and so on, the information technology, the guts of it. But if we had something where people could understand that given that almost all of the mainstream media is controlled by 6 corporations, and the Central Intelligence Agency, for example, has pretty much infiltrated all of it. And they get themselves up there where they can either influence the higher ups, or they're actually maybe in a higher up position themselves, and they can censor everything or cause people to self-censor. That we need some sort of independent source before it's too late, because at a certain point, as we've seen historically, whether it's a combination of, you know, the corporations, the government, traditionally fascism, that ends up controlling everything, and they know how people's minds work. When I talk about these beliefs, you got to know that people who are way up there in the intelligence agencies, they understand this totally. They have to know these things, and they got to know how to manipulate large populations. So if we had something where, like when I was talking about the Tucker Carlson show, and he's going to bring on Roy Spencer, the meteorologist from University of Alabama in Huntsville, a known climate change denier and on the payroll of the energy companies. If we could have something that people would trust, that they could go to and they could see, hey, this is a problem. There's a problem with Tucker Carlson and his show, because he's bringing on somebody who is supposedly this very sane, sober meteorologist to tell his huge audience that, hey, folks, nothing is going on, normal variability. And people need to be able to understand that and basically to say, that's not acceptable, this kind of thing. So again, you know, it would be great if the higher ups at Microsoft or Apple or Google, or, you know, if they really were able to come out and say, hey, we know this, we want you all to know it, we have the information platforms to put it out there, we're no longer going to simply do what the higher ups tell us, even though we're very wealthy and up there, you know, what they tell us we've got to do or else, then that would be great. But I don't expect to see that happen. And Jamin, you may know some things that, you know, would tell me that I'm wrong in even thinking that. But I think that something needs to be done independent of the corporate authority figures, whether they're in, information technology or otherwise, because I think they're locked up, and they really don't have too many options because, the people. I mean, so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and mute out. I just wanted to make those points.
No, great points. We've got Miles next in the queue, followed by Adrian, followed by Jamin, and I'll be happy to address your points there, Dan. Thank you. So on to you, Miles, and then Adrian.
Okay, thank you. So in my previous statement, I explained I had fear, about transiting through JFK. Not that I'm doing anything I should be ashamed of. It's just you get paranoid. And having listened to people like Chris Hedges, Noam Chomsky, Jeremy Scahill, all these people talking about, the erosion of your civil liberties down there, it makes me fearful. Now, just very quickly, piggybacking on your discussion, your comments, Daniel, about CIA, NSA, here's some quotes. And if anybody wants the details, I can give them to you, but to be brief. Here's one. President Bill Clinton to White House reporter, quote, "Sarah, there's a government inside the government, and I don't control it." That was Bill Clinton's words. John F. Kennedy to French Ambassador Alphonse re CIA regarding CIA and possible link to coup attempt on Charles de Gaulle, who was president of France. Quote, "The CIA is such a vast and poorly controlled machine that the most unlikely maneuvers might be true." Okay, here's another one. Quote, "There's something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is causing a shadow over our historic position as a free and open society." He concluded, "and I feel that we need to correct it." Who was that? Harry Truman, December 22nd, 1965, after he had left being president. Here's another one. "There's something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is causing," Ray McGovern, govern about Senator Chuck Schumer, who said to, Chuck Schumer said this, "They have 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you." He said that on the Rachel Maddow show. And anyway, one more. Peter Strzok, second highest counterintelligence official at the FBI, assistant attorney, in a email and text exchange, gossiping with an underling, stated, quote, "I really don't want to join the Mueller investigation. There's no there." So anyway, yeah, there's real reasons. Now, to say that the entire CIA is rogue is wrong. There's great people who work there, and there's some great people that actually blew the whistle and had to leave. But, you can't disparage the whole organization. Now, back to quickly a question for everybody. You did a fantastic job there, Jamin, with respect to just going out singing, people turning their heads, looking at your sign, picking up one of those 1,000 pamphlets, and that's all you can do initially. And your daughter there, your Queen's daughter April, said, I remember in a previous broadcast, it's through the arts that we're going to reach people, and I think that is so true. It's the only way we're going to get them to ease out of their cognitive dissonance, this collective psychological paralysis that they're in, is to do it gently like that, and some humor. I think that was just fabulous, and really applaud. Now, a question to all of you. Ralph Nader, who I'm a huge fan of, so one of his broadcasts, he said, target your peer group. So in other words, there's a bunch of us here would consider ourselves baby boomers. We're on the cusp. We're either retired or we're soon to retire. And I think we've been around long enough to say, yeah, there's a lot of BS being spread around here. And, we're on the way out. Baby boomers will soon be fizzling out. I think we should call upon baby boomers to actually make a boom and start, to call out the emperor has no clothes. So, Daniel, would you be able to go to your peers of retired psychologists and say, are you going to get on board? Because the people, the younger psychologists, they're entrenched in the systems and they're too afraid to speak out because they'll lose their job. But what do we have to lose?
you know, and Jamin, you're doing that sort of as well. And maybe you got to target the baby boomers of Microsoft because they don't have as much to lose. Anyway, with that, I'm muting.
Great. Thank you for your comments, Miles. So Adrian is up next, followed by Jamin, followed by Dan. Take it away, and followed by Adam. Take it away, Adrian, whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, the first thing I wanted to touch on there was you were talking about the CIA and the existence of a secret government. Here's what scares me is for decades and decades and decades, there have been programs, secret programs, that what's upsetting is the president, even our own president, is not aware of, or our House or our Senate. And how many millions of dollars are going to these programs, and why isn't anyone aware of it? I understand the need for national security. I understand the need to keep certain things secret, but it seems to me like it's just gotten out of hand, and it's gotten out of hand to the point where it's out of control. And you know, the fact that people who are involved with these organizations, they're put into fear for their lives and for their families' lives, so that they can't speak about it, is just devastating. And it looks to me like that's almost part of the beginning of the end of the United States. The other thing I want to talk about is the fact that FEMA has a planned emergency alert test going on. It's supposed to be on Thursday, but I see now that they have put that until October 3rd because of the problems that we have with Hurricane Florence going on currently. And, you know, honestly, God forbid, if there is some kind of true national, I mean, absolute true World War III breaks out, and our president comes on the television to talk with us, given his approval rating, which I think is around 30% now, 36, at the most 37 or 38 that I've heard lately, and the number of lies that he has been caught in, I wonder how the response of the United States would actually be as a result of that. I wonder how many people would believe everything that the president is saying in an emergency situation. So it's very, very unfortunate that we have such an absence of leadership in our country right now, where people's lives are at stake. Our country is at stake. Our democracy is truly at stake. So I yield the mic.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. I'll speak next, followed by Dan, followed by Adam, and feel free to queue yourself up if you'd like. After that, let me move over to my other computer because I just want to share a couple things there. Okay, I'm going to do everyone can hear me, right? And see this other screen here. All right, let me do a screen share. I just want to expose what it is our proposal to Microsoft is. But first, I just want to give a super brief kind of mini intro to what is the essence of radical collective intelligence that we're proposing to Microsoft as a platform to be built out. So at the bottom of the screen here you see the goose with golden eggs. The golden eggs are the solutions. We need myriad solutions. We've been talking a lot about the problems at multiple levels, including political problems, PR problems, misinformation problems, lies, media problems, corporate control, et cetera, et cetera. When I talk solutions, I mean solutions to all of those problems, not just the engineering problems for how to refreeze the Arctic and do geoshading and whatnot. Okay, so if what we need are solutions, myriad solutions across multiple dimensions, those are the golden eggs. So we need, in order to generate those solutions, we need radical collective intelligence, which is the goose that lays those golden eggs. So what is this goose? What's inside the goose? Well, let's open it up and find out. Inside the goose, just like a cow has, like multiple stomachs, the goose has multiple stages inside of it for the solutionaries to congregate on. These are the processes of generating solutions. First, ideation, coming up with ideas, but using collective intelligence, using the tools of collective intelligence, including artificial intelligence. That the best ideas go over to the design phase, where other groups of people, or could include some of the same folks, you can work in whatever area you want, work on collectively designing. So think of GitHub for solutions. Then the best design solutions go over to the modeling and optimization stage, where they're looked at holistically with all the solutions that are candidates, and using very sophisticated modeling and optimization, including artificial intelligence technologies. The system will help us figure out what combination of solutions has the highest probabilities of solving our problems, all of our problems, and then finally implementation. And that's where you see the arrows going out of the implementation box to the golden eggs in the real world. Okay, so with that as context, let me now read to you, as well as share on the screen, our proposal to Microsoft for pioneering solutions to abrupt climate change. I'm just going to read through this relatively quickly. Feel free to jump in if you have anything to say or question about it. This is the result of literally years of work that we finally got it down to 2 pages. So I appreciate your patience as I read through this. First section, where we're going to talk about the problem, then the solution, then meta-solution. Meta-solution is the goose that lays the golden eggs. It's that which generates the solution. Then radical collective intelligence, what is that? And then specifically our proposal to Microsoft. Wait, do I have the right version up on there? No, this is the right version. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so the problem. Abrupt climate change is accelerating, threatening all complex life on Earth with extinction, including our favorite species, humanity. It is both driven by and causes myriad related problems, including forest fires, hurricanes, droughts, floods, record-breaking heat waves, melting of polar and glacial ice, release of methane from the ocean floor, to name a few. The preceding are accelerating the destruction of the biosphere, driving in turn the 6th mass extinction, which we are in the midst of. ACC, abrupt climate change. ACC's core causes include overpopulation of humanity, modern agriculture, our current economic mode of production, and set of living arrangements, including the entire oil and gas industry. Abrupt climate change is further exacerbated by humanity persistently ignoring it, denying it, and avoiding the search for solutions, which is vital for our survival. Just ask yourself, when was the last time you contemplated the above witch's brew of wicked problems, their interrelatedness, and the urgency to solve them? The latter problem of denial/avoidance is best analyzed in the excellent book, Don't Even Think About It, Why Our Brains Are Wired to Ignore Climate Change, by George Marshall. Credible sources estimate that we have very little time left to solve abrupt climate change and related problems, a few years at best. That's the bad news. The good news is that transformational solutions are ready for us to implement immediately. Please read on. The solution. For each of the specific problems listed above, there are one or more physical solutions, engineering solutions for cooling the planet, for example, geoshading, ecosystem restoration solutions, for example, holistic land management, energy solutions like fusion and solar, contaminant substitution solutions, for example, using hemp-based products instead of petroleum-based, urban planning and living arrangement solutions, for example, arcologies instead of urban sprawl, bicycles, mass transit, and electric vehicles instead of gasoline cars, etc. And solutions to overpopulation, for example, female education in developing nations, etc. Finally, there are policy, legislative, taxation solutions for reducing emissions like carbon tax and for meeting other important objectives. It is crucial to note that none of these solutions will ever be designed, built, funded, or implemented at sufficient scale until and unless we solve the problem of denial/avoidance. Therefore, in addition to the above physical and political solutions, we urgently need to break the silence and inspire a cultural transformation, which will in turn create a political transformation, both of which will inspire mass action and investment in the entire corpus of above solutions. Meta solution, the goose. In order to ensure our success in creating and implementing the above solutions and many more, we propose, in addition to and in support of the above specific solutions, a grand meta solution that thing which will generate all the specific solutions with the speed and surety of success required. The meta solution we propose is radical collective intelligence. And again, I just want to emphasize these solutions that I'm talking about include the cultural solutions, the political solutions, the living arrangement solutions, everything holistically. So not some engineering solutions that are just going to sit on the shelf because they never got funded. I'm talking about solving the problem of actually getting them funded, et cetera, et cetera. Back to the reading. So radical collective intelligence beyond AI. This is the goose that lays the golden egg. So looking inside the goose, what does it take to generate all the solutions that we need? Radical collective intelligence, RCI, is in essence a gigantic collective brain laser focused on generating all necessary solutions and consists of 3 parts. 1, a planetary community of solutionaries, the people engaged in developing solutions. See, here's the fascinating thing. A diverse community of millions of solutionaries already exists. What they lack is a suitable platform, complete with AI, empowering them to collectively co-create the amazing corpus of transformational solutions which await us. So solutionaries are the first ingredient, people. The next ingredient, a platform, an ICT platform that stands for Information and Communication Technologies, enabling in turn the core processes of solution ideation, design, modeling and optimization, and implementation at scale. Those are the 4, phases inside the goose that lays the golden eggs. And 3, various flavors of artificial intelligence in the form of systems and bots doing fundamentally 2 things. A, organizing all forms of information generated via the platform, plus that accessible via the web, plus that from all available databases, academic, scientific, engineering, and otherwise, and mapping this information to structured taxonomies of topics, including solutions and components thereof. And then B, with all that information organized, connecting solutionaries with that information, the optimal information they need, and the processes that solutionaries need to be connected to. Again, think the 4 stages inside the goose, and the people for each individual solutionary to engage with at any given moment, all with the goal of optimizing and maximizing the evolution of solutions. So RCI, Radical Collective Intelligence, includes AI and pairs it with the millions of solutionaries on Earth, creating a new form of radical collective intelligence, far beyond AI in its power, reach, intelligence, creativity, and solution generating capacity. So this grand meta solution, radical collective intelligence, exists mostly on paper, mostly in theory and in design, but it hasn't actually been built yet. So we're reaching out to the tech sector to help us build it out so that we can finally have an operating radical collective intelligence. So here is our proposal to Microsoft. We are appealing to Microsoft to join us in accomplishing the following key objectives. Publicly announce our entry into the race for solutions to abrupt climate change, for the survival of humanity and as many species and ecosystems as can be saved. This will break the silence and signal to the rest of the world that it is not only okay, but in fact crucial that we, a united humanity, join together to co-create all the solutions we need. Second point, lead the technology sector in building the first ever complete platform for radical collective intelligence, RCI, the technology part of the meta solution. And in so doing, this is crucial, we will unite the world's solutionaries, heretofore quite fragmented. That's a crucial point. The solutionaries exist. People watching this video, many of you are solutionaries, but just consider how fragmented we are. Well, this platform will unite us solutionaries, the human part of the meta solution. This will be united with our technological platform to form a complete meta solution, a whole radical collective intelligence with the singular objective of designing and implementing all the solutions we need, spanning all realms: engineering, environmental, cultural, political, economic, living arrangements, agriculture, industrial, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for reading, and to get involved, please join radish.org. And please do not hesitate to contact us with your questions or comments. So that is the proposal that we have submitted to Microsoft via a number of channels. And with that, I'm going to go back to the so we can hand it off to those who are next in the queue. So let me identify. Next is Dan, followed by Adam. So take it away, Dan.
Yeah, Jamin, that was great. What you and whoever may have assisted you putting that together. It's very coherent, concise. It's really good. Really, I'm so impressed with that. But again, I don't know how much traction it'll get for other reasons, but it's really nice. So just going to a couple of things that I think Adrian was bringing up, so when you look at this situation which is unfolding at present in North Carolina, you know, one of the things that was being reported on, not on mainstream media particularly, was that you have a number of nuclear power plants along the coast, and that there could be a problem, you know, a la Fukushima, if you really got hit by a level 5 or 6. And I think that, again, that's, you know, these nuclear power plants apparently are way outdated. It's all over, you know, you have them all over the country near bodies of water. And so, again, it's something which the population needs to understand, and hopefully something could be done about that. And the thing is with, again, going to Donald Trump, you know, Donald Trump, in my lifetime, and I've said this before, I think on Social Club or in other forums, I have never been so disheartened to see my community, generally speaking, the progressive community, which I've been a part of since I was in my late teens, become what it appears to be today, where they have simply made Donald Trump, it's a fetish about Donald Trump. He becomes this icon who represents everything that is bad and evil. And there is no critical thought as to actually who is he? And why is there someone like that who's sitting on top of our political hierarchy today? And if you really go into it, you've got to see that there's so many people just like him. He was born and raised in this country. He grew up in a big city environment where if you're going to be a real estate developer, you're going to be a local politician, you're going to be a lawyer, etc., and you want to make money and be able to move about, you're going to have to engage in white-collar crime or maybe more than that. Can't be a big surprise. He is who he is. But I think he's also somebody who appears to be very psychopathic, meaning that he is a out-and-out predator. Mostly he's been a financial predator his life, like so many others. And what that means is that he is able to easily camouflage himself. He's like a chameleon. You know, he can go and he can be with all of these Christian fundamentalist ministers. I don't know how often they get together. They lay hands on them. They all pray together. How could anybody with critical thought processes believe that that's who Donald Trump really is? And of course, he can also, you know, paint himself as the defender of the destroyed blue-collar working class, particularly the Caucasian element up in the Rust Belt. So the thing is, you have him there. He could be criticized all over the place. He will always, in my opinion, make decisions according to what he perceives is in his own self-interest. He can, he can go from this is my position to something else if he thinks it's a better way to go. And he hasn't really been attacked for that. He's just attacked. He's a racist. He's a fascist. He's the next Hitler. These kinds of emotionally driven characterizations of him really misses what I think is really important. And going back to my fantasy about the platform or what radical collective intelligence could do. So, for example, just that little anecdote I gave about Tucker Carlson, going back to it one more time. So if we have the information available, we know who Roy Spencer is. Big-time climate denier, shill for the energy industry, works at University of Alabama, Huntsville. He is who he is. And he is not a legitimate source of information on abrupt climate change or climate change in general. So the question becomes, if Roy Spencer is identified as that, then anywhere that Roy Spencer is brought into play ought to be immediately negated. In other words, people ought to be able to understand, and anybody who's sponsoring him is not a reliable source of information. I mean, practically all of our media, and that's where nobody reads today, hardly, maybe people here in the social club and other places, they do, you read, but most people do not read. They have, even college graduates haven't read books in a long time, and certainly not the right kinds of books. So we just have this this problem. Having a platform where people could check things out. Okay, I saw Tucker Carlson show, had this guy, supposedly this objective meteorologist, Roy Spencer. Let me check that out. And then let me also be able to find out who it is actually at Fox News who makes these kind of editorial decisions and tells Tucker Carlson, here's who we got for you, put them on. And once you get up to that level, if that information could be gathered, which theoretically it could, you would probably find out we have some very, very unsavory characters up there in, whether it's Fox News or CNN or other, corporate media interests and other corporations. And to be able to, let the population know that, abrupt climate change is the biggest threat we have going right now. I mean, it's anybody who is impeding an understanding of that, so that we can at least try to engage in the precautionary principle of let's try to mitigate whatever damage we can. Let's try to prevent unnecessary problems from arising. We all have to meet our fate. And the final thing I'm going to say, and then I probably won't input anymore today, is that people do need to come to grips with the fact that you may be facing your own individual death a lot sooner for most of you than you would have liked to, contemplate, as Guy McPherson points out over and over again. And you do need to think about how you want to be. It's not enough to say, like Guy McPherson does, love everybody, love the people you're with, be with the people you're with. Most people aren't going to go to any kind of place of love. It's going to be something very, very different. It is going to be, most people will be looking for vengeance. There will be, people planning, survivalists who will turn to cannibalism, etc. All horrible, ugly stuff. But people need to be able to have the time and space before it's right on you to be able to think, how do I want to be under that set of circumstances? Maybe I don't want to be part of a ravaging gang who's going to steal food from other people and just try to survive till the end, until somebody gets me. You know, the Mad Max kind of stuff. So I do think that somehow people need to start. The decent thing for anybody who can allow themselves to understand what's going on, you ought to start thinking about that now. Help your family, your loved ones, go ahead and also start to think about it. How do I want to be in the end times if that's what happens, if we can't prevent it? That's it. I'm going to go ahead and mute out. And I actually have to get going too. So again, I just want to thank everybody for being in this forum, in this, in this group. And I look forward to seeing everybody. Hopefully we'll have another one next week. So I'm checking out, folks. Take care. See you soon.
Thanks so much, Dan. Thank you so much. Great comments. So next on the list, we've been waiting for over 25 minutes now, is Adam, followed by Miles. I also want to welcome Jamie Gilchrist, who's just joined us. And I'm just going to volunteer Jamie to talk after Miles. So we'll just go in order here. So Adam, followed by Miles, followed by Jamie. Take it away, Adam.
Hey, thank you. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Take it away, Adam.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed being out there with Jamin and Melissa and Jamie. And here's my take on it. Mankind needs a Superman. And Microsoft has the opportunity to be our Superman. And Jamin's developed a website here. I found out he's been writing this code since he was 25, a long time. So he's very very skilled at this. And mankind needs a Superman. And and so he invites Solutionaries to come here he wants Microsoft to build a platform where people can come in and input. And so a lot of this is in Jamin's head, and it's hard to get it out of there sometimes. So it's been a little bit hard for me to kind of grasp how this whole thing is going to work. But I see it. I'm hopeful. I think that my Road to Life plan is going to go on there, and it's going to be compared to other plans, and people will start coming up with other plans. And if you build it, they will come. So I'm really hopeful that Microsoft will get on board and build this platform, and so mankind can have a place to come, because we don't have any contingency plans. I mean, when the collapse comes, what's going to happen? We don't really know. So the government's going to send out this warning. Well, big deal. I mean, there's what we need is a website for everybody to be able to go to and start making these plans. And the thing about the Road to Life plan is that makes it different is that it calls for the end use of all money. And I'm looking forward to that being compared against the other plans, because I think mankind really needs a whole different way of thinking, and we have to address life and address the earth with respect, and so the hypothesis of the Road to Life plan is that mankind's been fouling his own nest, and an animal in nature won't foul its own nest unless it's sick. So the hypothesis is that mankind is sick because we're under the influence of this poison of money. And so when I look at it like that, and I look at all these myriad amount of problems out here, I just, I can see that they're all caused by money. And that allows me to not blame anybody, and that's where everybody is talking about, we're going to blame you, or we're going to blame the CIA or the government, or, all these institutions and stuff are just made up of people like you and me that went to, were in school as as grade kids, and they just it's just their different environments and opportunities and stuff that led them and got them into these positions. They're not bad people. They're just under this influence of this poison, and that's the way I look at it. And that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Good stuff, Adam. Great stuff. All righty. Let's now move to Miles, followed by Jamie. Take it away, Miles.
Okay, thanks. First of all, Adam, initially when I heard you say we've got to end all money, I was like, what? And thinking, who the heck am I associating with here? And insofar as being in cahoots with some initiative that is really anti-establishment, and it's like, okay, again, what where's that coming from, and is it subversive? But the more I've listened to you, the more I've become more at ease with what you're proposing. I see the wisdom in it. But again, it's a shocking consideration. But we've got to do a paradigm shift. Jamin, that business proposal of yours is very succinct. Even a layperson like me can understand it and where you're coming from. One of the questions I have for you, Jamin, is this collective intelligence will actually potentially become a very fearsome tool for some people, insofar as if someone does tell lies, I would imagine this system is going to identify that right off the bat, right? You will not be able to tell lies. And I guess, maybe I should be careful not to say that that's a given, but there'd have to be auditing systems in it. I just want to share one thing before I sign off or go on mute. Like the Queen, I'm very interested in the Indigenous worldview. And I have this book that's by an Indigenous lawyer here in Canada named Bev Sellars, and it's titled Price Paid: The Fight for First Nations Survival. And with respect to this concept of the veracity of information, her being a lawyer, she says whenever information is offered, that it has to be founded on fact. I just can't make stuff up like some people do. So I'll just read this if I may. It's not very long. So from an original event, is the source of information the speaker or a translator? In other words, first-hand person. If so, has the message changed from one language to another? Second consideration, was the message translated into an additional language, say from Aboriginal to French to English? Is the report from an eyewitness, or is it hearsay, or rumor? Did the writer have any bias? Was the event recorded? If so, did the recorder and the act of recording bring into the act of, what did they maybe contaminate in the record keeping? For whom were the records written? Would the audience have affected the telling of the story? What is the date? What is the place? What is the time of the event? What were the circumstances? Were cultural differences taken into account? And were original records altered by anyone? All this filtration is required to determine how accurate anything is. These are the questions we need to ask as we explore historic documents that record the history of, in this case, Aboriginal people from the newcomer's point of view. But anyway, just offering that because the intelligence will have to have checks and balances in it. And with that, I'm going on mute.
Great. Thank you, Miles. Great stuff. I'd like to invite Jamie to chime in, followed by Adrian. If it's a good time for you, Jamie. If not, just ignore me, and we'll pass it on to Adrian. Jamie, you jumping in or okay? All right, you're muted, Jamie. It looks like you might be busy, so we'll pass it on to Adrian, and then Jamie, you can feel free to jump in after that. Take it away, Adrian.
Okay, hey, you guys were talking about collective consciousness and what solutions we may have for the predicament that we have of abrupt climate change and abrupt extinction. Well, obviously it's abrupt to us, and then on geological terms, this would be or will be instantaneous extinction in geological terms. But anyway, with talking about the solutions that we have, I go back to the book that I read called Drawdown that had about 100 solutions. Maybe there was 80 solutions, and of those top solutions, the number one solution they actually had to break down into two different areas were women's issues. And they broke it down in half. They ended up being number 6 and number 7 in being able to lower the atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide. But those two women's issues were educating girls and family planning. If we're going to look at this as a global issue, and it is a global issue, we absolutely have to look at women's issues. And with us being considered, for now, the leaders of the free world, I have a fear that the women's issues are going downhill as far as the United States is concerned, with the possibility of Kavanaugh coming into the Supreme Court. I just wanted to make that note that the women's issues is so big, not just in our nation, but globally. So I'd like your thoughts on that.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. Jamie, did you want to chime in now? Okay, Jamie, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now,
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Take it away, Jamie. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I had to park the truck. Anyhow, sorry, I was late. I'm tied up helping a friend. Adrian, nice to meet you. I'm Jamie. I read that book, and that book is it's really fantastic. And I think that Adrian's point is very well taken. I mean, I could talk about a lot of stuff, but women's issues are really global issues. And one of the biggest problems we had that's been identified on Adam's Road to Life is this money management and chattel going back to the beginning of time. And when we went from a matriarchal society to the patriarchal society, when we left First Nations and the Europeans came to this country and to this continent, and we started warring and we left the women out, is really where the root of this problem comes from. And I agree 100% with her. I hate to even call them women's issues because sadly they're relegated to women's issues. But one of the big problems we have is the men have been running the ship for a long time, and it's run aground. And we've not asked anybody, First Nations people, women, they've all been treated as commodities. And that is a significant problem and a tremendous waste of a super valuable resource. And that is the elder women in our communities that we now warehouse away from society. It's just a nightmare. So this is a small caveat to this bigger, climate change issue. But one of the things I'd like to see on the road to life, whatever that form ends up taking, if we can get there, is to push away from this patriarchal warring society and this collecting chattel and collecting property and women and condos and Corvettes. That's the symptom of the problem, that we left the matriarchal society. And Jamin's girlfriend, Melissa, talks about this constantly because she's right on point, and Adrian's right on point as well. I'm going to go on mute. I just want to say hi. Sorry, these conversations are critical. Also, by the way, everybody tell your friends on Facebook. Blast out on Facebook to come to these meetings. Let's get some people involved. Let's blow this thing up now. It's time. We got to get people thinking. Even if it's 1 hour a week, just get people to join. Say, come to this meeting with me. It's fantastic. It's interesting. It's intellectual. And let's just try to get people joining here. It's really cool. And I hope you're okay there in North Carolina, Adrian. I was on my way down there for a vacation last week, and then we canceled. So I hope you're doing okay. Okay, I'm going to mute.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, Jamin is up next, followed by Adam, followed by Miles, and I encourage everyone to just type into the chat if you want to have some time on the mic. Regarding women's issues, I just want to point out when I went and participated in the actions at Standing Rock back in 2016, I was invited to join by my auntie and uncle, Deborah and Alex Whiteplume, who are leaders of the Lakota First Nation. They live in South Dakota. And I learned that they still govern themselves using the Tioshpaye system, where it is a council of women, mostly women elders, mothers, who make the major decisions. And even the decision to go to war and to stage protests at Standing Rock, for example, the call to warriors was put out by women. Only the Women Council can declare war. I think that's crucial because I really don't think we men are competent to make that decision. When called upon to go to war, and that's one of the reasons we've got the Princess Leia sign there making the plea to Satya Nadella. I really think it's the women who have the ability to form this collective wisdom to really guide and govern, and it's up to men for us to go to battle when called upon, or build projects, or do whatever, but let us be guided by the wisdom of women, and particularly mothers and elder women. So that's the comment I wanted to make on that. I think it's absolutely crucial. I think men definitely have a place in society, but I think making the decisions is not real. Making these big major decisions that affect all of us is not that place. And I think with the Radical Collective Intelligence platform, we can actually institute something like that. But we'll leave it to the collective intelligence to figure that out. Along those lines, I wanted to comment that we had a really interesting conversation yesterday. Jamie, Michael Call, who's currently in Thailand, and myself, and we talked about what is it going to take to actually recruit the solutionaries to this platform. And we've been appealing to the tech sector to help us build the platform, but really, in order to get there to the point that people can jump in and say, okay, I want to be a part of this, I want to be a solutionary and help build the platform, two things really have to happen first. You have to, number one, acknowledge and stare in the face the urgency and severity of abrupt climate change, the reality of abrupt climate change. And secondly, you have to be willing to jump in and join the mission to address it via solutions and via building out and supporting the platform of Radical Collective Intelligence in the face of tremendous odds against us. Because let's face it, the odds aren't necessarily that great at this point, and they're getting worse every day. The more we delay jumping in and implementing some sort of solution generating capability of the nature of what we're proposing. So I want to encourage everyone watching and listening and everyone on this call to join Radish, which is the very first early version of the meta solution, of the platform for generating solutions. You can apply to join on the homepage of radish.org, and we will, and once on Radish, you can then schedule conversations and series of conversations, which the rest of the community can then join. This is sort of our anchor, meeting, the social club at the end of the world. And it's, intentionally designed to be very inclusive and, somewhat light and very open format. And some people complain because, we meander and talk about all kinds of different topics. But the whole point of Radish is that people can create conversations on whatever topics they wish, create series of conversations on whatever topics they wish, invite whoever they wish, including but not limited to the general public. Or they can just have focused conversations with a limited invite list, whatever you want to do. But please join radish.org, because we need to get to critical mass as quickly as possible if we're really going to get this ship off the ground. So I wanted to make that appeal to everyone. And next up to talk is Adam, followed by Miles. So take it away, Adam.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, so I think I agree. It's just totally imperative that we get everybody, on board as fast as possible, because really we need to refreeze the Arctic probably this year. And I mean, it just looks like we need to do that, and so we need to get active immediately. And I'm on full support of Jamin's project here, and his project's way more important than mine, and I'm right now, especially because. So, and anyway, I was listening to a YouTube video yesterday and about these young kids who are developing apps, and it just occurred to me, kind of incidentally here, that maybe an app could be developed for Solutionaries to get on Radish or something like that, maybe. And then the other point about family, the book Drawdown, which I have not read, but family planning and solutions for that in the Road to Life plan, where there is no money, women aren't influenced by money. And you turn on TV and you watch how the shows are influencing women. They're actually I mean, you watch a TV show in the evening, and you often see women who are involved in pregnancies and stuff like that, and they're quite emotional. And then the commercial comes on, and it's some diaper commercial, and they're selling. So the people who are selling this stuff are also using their psychology and everything to cause women to want to have more babies. And so we're being influenced, I think, a lot more by money than we think. And also, and the Road to Life plan, as I was saying, there's, I think that there's a lot of technology out there that we could have voluntary reversible sterilization for both men and women. And so I think that's the answer. So somebody gets sterilized, and then they don't have to worry about getting pregnant or getting somebody pregnant until they want to, until they're ready, until, we can eliminate premature, or not premature, but, unwanted, or not, maybe unwanted is not a good word. I better shut up here. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. Thanks.
Yeah, we got you, Adam. All right, Miles is up next. Go ahead, Miles.
Speaking to Adrian's question, and Jamin, I totally agree that we have to change our thinking as men and recognize the matriarchal authority. The whole, even the word matriarchy wasn't even in my vocabulary until the last 3 years ago. But this is a feminine wisdom. It's the mother archetype. That's the life force that they have, that we've drifted away. Adam has spoken eloquently, writes eloquently about this. The first time I heard about this word matriarchy was from Russell Means, who was with the American Indian movement. He was a Dakota Indian. And he was a man with admitted flaws and shadow. So, I'm not endorsing him, but he wrote a book where white men fear to tread. Highly recommend that. I did mention as well Bev Sellers, an Indigenous lawyer here in Canada. She's in British Columbia. Just want to make a point that she just recently was the only person, the only citizen to stand up and take a mining company to court. In British Columbia, I don't know if you heard about it, but there's a Mount Poly tailings pond failure. Massive amount of tailings ponds spills out into pristine environment. And if she hadn't stepped forward, there was going to be an expiry of the time limit to take this mining company to court. So again, this divine feminine concern for life. Now, one final statement as well is, this is another book by an American First Nations lady named Sherry Mitchell. She lives in New York and just recently received this. It's called Sacred Instructions. And she talks both about First Nations Indigenous wisdom and the wisdom of the feminine half of the planet. So anyway, with that, I thank everybody for the conversation, and I will have to say goodbye shortly. Catch you next time.
All right. Great to see you, Miles. Thanks so much for joining. We don't have anyone else in the queue. Anyone and everyone is welcome to comment or join the queue. So I'll just make a couple of comments and then go on mute and just kind of throw it open to whoever wants to jump in. Adam mentioned that he has to go, and he thanks us all. We've been on for almost a couple hours now. Really great session today. I just really want to make the point that, you know, a lot of great points are being made and have been made and continue to be made every day by solutionaries, by concerned people. I want to make a general plea to humanity that we find the ways, and there's not just one way, but that we find the ways to come together, right? To go to local meetups. Adrian, I'll let you sign off if you'd like. I'm going to go on mute and give Adrian a chance to, if you'd like, Adrian, no pressure. If you need to sign.
Okay, yeah, I do have to sign off now, but I just want to thank you guys. I'm so grateful I was able to spend a little bit of time with you today, and I'm not sure when I will be going back to work or even when I'll be able to travel here in North Carolina to get to work, but I do want to thank you for I always have a wonderful time with you guys. Thank you so much. Take care and bless you. Bye.
Thank you, Adrian, and we'd love to see you again very soon. So, and thanks to everyone for joining. Really wonderful to have you today, Adrian, on the program. So back to my general appeal and plea to humanity is that we find the ways to come together, like via this program, the Social Club at the End of the World, like via radish.org. And I want to reiterate my appeal to the entire technology sector to join the mission of building out all of those parts of the platform that we need to bring people together. A solutionary platform built by solutionaries, operated by solutionaries, leveraging collective intelligence and myriad technologies, including but not limited to video conferencing, search, indexing, organizing databases into taxonomies so that we can organize all the information by topics and trees of connected topics. I mean, the fundamental question is, are we going to solve our problems or not, right? I mean, it's very interesting to talk about our problems, but the crucial point, I believe, is, are we going to solve our problems? And to do that, we need to organize. We need to get together. And I believe that we have the potential to manifest a vastly higher form of intelligence than anything we've witnessed on Earth that's truly terrestrial, you know, aside from the spiritual, the divine, the angels, creation, creator. I'm talking about humans getting together and manifesting a form of intelligence to help ourselves. God helps those who help themselves. Well, let's help ourselves, and let's help creation to carry on life. And so our big effort in that direction, speaking for all of us at radish.org, is precisely radish.org, the platform for radical collective intelligence. So please join radish.org, apply for membership, and please join these conversations, because, I mean, what better chance do we have than organizing intelligently and taking action? Conversation alone is not going to do it, but it is a good start, and it is a way for us to, I think it's a crucial starting point for us to come to agreement as to how we're going to approach these problems and how we're going to solve them. And I really think that coming together and working together, not necessarily all agreeing on everything, heaven forbid, but coming together so that we can collaborate and co-create all the solutions we need is absolutely crucial. So with that, looks like it's just you and me. Jason, anything you'd like to add before we wrap up? And please take your time, no hurry.
Well, I was here for a bit. I got my phone like wouldn't use Hangout any longer. The sound went out. So for a few minutes I was gone there, but I did hear like your whole spiel right up to when Dan started talking. And I liked it. Like Dan sort of said, it was well thought out and well I liked it as well. So I wanted to tell you that, Jamin. I hope you get some traction with somebody paying attention to you. I maybe could agree with Dan a little bit on what he was saying about, the authority figures. But I know we've all, talked about this, and we hope that, if there's some billionaires out there that'll help us, maybe, something can get done, right? So, yeah, I don't know how much more I really have to say, I guess. I just, I agree with you that we should have, solution platform. So I hope you get some traction. I think one thing I've always thought about it too is the answers are all out there. So once we have something that can go picking through data, then we can start really formulating a picture in each category of what that looks like, what options are there. But yeah, it's good to see you again. How you been?
Oh man, been really busy with the whole Microsoft campaign. Jamie flew out from Ohio for that. Adam drove up from Olympia. We had Queen Melionora's daughter Alice out from Belgium, and a lot of other supporters locally. So it's been a lot of effort, but so worth it. And now we're basically figuring out how do we best target solutionaries for recruitment to Radish and to whatever the platform evolves to become, both from the tech sector and just from the general public. I mean, we need techies to help build the platform because it is a technological platform, an information and communication technologies platform. So calling all techies, that was one of the songs I sang over and over at the events. Calling all techies from calling all angels. And but we also, and we need solutionaries from all walks of life. So please join radish.org and let's get this thing going. Enough talk. It's time for action. So we'll see you all on radish.org. And yeah, just been super busy and just trying to keep it balanced and pace myself and everything so I don't burn out or get sick or anything like that. But just super busy, but loving it.
Cool. All right. Well, good to see you. I don't have much more to say on here, but yeah.
All righty. Well, great to see you, Jason, and great to see everyone, and look forward to seeing everyone again. And newcomers welcome at any time on the Social Club at the End of the World. So look forward to seeing you all, and everyone, have a great day. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.